mother-in-law calls me a broken woman at the family gathering and blames me for their family lineage not going ahead. Then proceeded to blame me for revealing sensitive family information when I told her that their lineage was dead for a while now, and even her own husband was not aware of it. I never thought a simple family gathering could turn into an attack on my choices. But that's exactly what happened. My mother-in-law, Darlene, 60, female, has always been vocal about her opinions, especially when it comes to family traditions. My husband, Eric, 34, male, and I, 33, female, have been married for 6 years, and in that time, she has made it very clear that she expects grandchildren. The gathering was at Eric's cousin's house. It was a casual event with food and conversation, nothing fancy. I was used to these family events, and most of the time I ignored Darlene's comments. But this time she took things too far. It started small, like always. She made little remarks about how nice it is to have kids, how they bring purpose to life. I knew where she was going with this, but I stayed quiet. Then, as more people gathered around, she became louder and more direct. She started talking about how sad it was that Eric would never have children because of me. She made it sound like I was ruining his future and the family name. She called me selfish. Then she called me broken. The room went silent for a moment. People exchanged looks. Some of Eric's relatives avoided looking at me, while others whispered to each other. I felt my face get hot. I was not embarrassed, I was angry. This was not the first time she had brought this up, but it was the first time she had done it so openly in front of everyone. I am not infertile. I just do not want kids. Eric and I talked about this before we got married, and we agreed on it. He never pressured me, never made me feel bad about my decision. We were happy with our lives, but Darlene never accepted it. To her, a woman who does not want kids is unnatural, incomplete, and now, in front of the whole family, she was making sure everyone knew how she felt. She kept going, saying that all the other women in the family had children. She talked about her struggles raising Eric, how she had done everything for him, only for him to disappoint her like this. She said she had failed as a mother because her son chose a woman who refused to give him children. She wanted the family to take her side. She pointed to Eric's cousins who had kids, talking about how happy they were. She said that having children was the most important thing in life, and that I was robbing Eric of that experience. She even tried to make it seem like Eric secretly wanted kids, but was afraid to tell me. I did not say anything. I just stood there holding my plate, trying not to let my frustration show. I was not going to justify my choices to anyone who refused to listen. But Eric did not stay quiet. He stepped in and shut her down. He did not yell. He did not get angry. He just told her in a firm voice that our marriage was our business. He told her he was happy with the life we had built together. He told her that no one, not even his mother, had the right to tell us what to do. Darlene did not like that. She turned her anger on Eric. She accused him of being brainwashed by me. She said I had turned him against her. She said he was not the son she had raised, that he had changed. She used the same guilt-tripping she had tried before, but this time it did not work. Eric stood his ground. He told her that if she couldn't respect our decisions, then there was nothing more to discuss. After that, the gathering became awkward. Some people tried to change the subject, acting like nothing had happened. Some gave me sympathetic looks. Others just stayed quiet. Darlene sat there, fuming. I could tell she was still thinking of ways to change Eric's mind. I knew this wouldn't be the last time she brought it up. She would never accept our choice. She would always see me as the woman who ruined her perfect family. But at that moment, all I cared about was that Eric had my back, and that was enough. Darlene sat in her chair, gripping the armrest so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her face was red with anger, and the room was tense. People whispered among themselves, still in shock from her earlier outburst. Eric had stood up for me, shutting her down, but she was not the type to let things go. She glared at me like she was daring me to say another word. Just when I thought she might stop, she started again. She ranted about how I had disrespected her, about how I had no right to interfere with her family. She blamed me for poisoning Eric's mind, for standing in the way of their bloodline continuing. She clung to old-fashioned beliefs, acting like my choice not to have kids was some kind of attack on her personally. I had had enough. If she wanted to talk about family and lineage, then she needed to hear the whole truth. So I looked straight at her and said what she never expected to hear. Her precious lineage had been dead for a while. Even her own husband, Roderick, did not know the full truth. The moment the words left my mouth, the whole room went silent. People froze. Those who had been pretending not to listen were now staring openly, waiting for what would happen next. Darlene's mouth opened slightly and then snapped shut. The shock in her eyes was undeniable. I was not lying. Eric had known since he was 15 that Roderick was not his biological father. Darlene had an affair years ago, and Eric was the result. She had carried that secret for years, never telling anyone, never making a big deal out of it. But he always knew. And after all the ways Darlene had treated me, after the things she had said, she had asked me to expose the truth. He wanted her to be held accountable. Darlene's hands shook as she clutched the chair. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. When she finally got the words out, her anger was louder than ever. She accused me of lying, of trying to destroy their family. She looked around the room, expecting someone to defend her, but no one spoke up. Everyone was too stunned. She realized denying it wouldn't work, so she switched tactics. She pointed at me, her face twisted with fury, and accused me of revealing sensitive family information. According to her, I had betrayed their trust. She called me cruel, selfish, and heartless for humiliating her like this. She blamed me for embarrassing her in front of the family. But I knew better. She was not mad at the truth itself. She was mad that she had lost control. She was furious that I had taken the power away from her, that she was now the one being judged. For years she looked down on me, treated me like I was not good enough for Eric, like I did not deserve to be part of their family, and now in one moment her whole argument had collapsed. Roderick sat motionless, staring at nothing. His face was pale. He was not an emotional man, but I could tell the news had shaken him. For more than 30 years he had believed Eric was his son. He had never questioned it, and now, in the middle of a family gathering, he had found out the truth. He did not say a word, did not even react at first. He just sat there processing everything. Darlene kept going, her words getting more desperate. She blamed Eric for not keeping the secret, for allowing me to say it out loud. She blamed me for ruining their family's reputation. She blamed everyone except herself. She refused to acknowledge what she had done, refused to take responsibility. Instead, she tried to turn it around. to make me the villain. Some of the relatives shifted in their seats, uncomfortable. A few of them looked like they wanted to defend Darlene, but they didn't know how. Others just looked at her with disappointment. No one had expected this. No one thought that her obsession with family bloodlines would backfire like this. She had spent years acting superior, and now, in front of everyone, her secret had unraveled. Eric remained calm. He didn't say anything, but he didn't need to. He had known this was coming, and he was ready for it. He was not ashamed of not being Roderick's biological son. He had made peace with it years ago. The only one struggling now was Darlene. She tried to regain control, but it was pointless. The damage was done. People weren't looking at me as the problem anymore. They were looking at her, her reputation, her authority, her self-righteousness. It had all crumbled in an instant. I knew she wouldn't forget this. I knew she wouldn't let it go. But I did not regret saying it. She had spent years making me feel like I was not enough, like I was not worthy of being part of their family. And all that time she had been sitting on a secret that made all her accusations meaningless. So now I have to ask, AITA for exposing the truth. Update 1. A few days passed after the family gathering and things were tense. No one really knew what to say or how to act. The atmosphere was heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Roderick hadn't come home since that night. He had disappeared without a word, leaving Darlene to scramble for control. She called him over and over, but he never picked up. She sent texts trying to explain herself, but got no response. It was clear that, for once, she had lost her grip on the situation. Roderick's absence spoke volumes. He was not the type to make impulsive decisions, and the fact that he had chosen to walk away instead of confronting Darlene told us just how deep the betrayal had cut. This was not just about an affair from decades ago. It was about trust, about his whole life being built on a lie. The family started whispering about it almost immediately. Some took Darlene's side, saying the past should stay in the past. Others defended Roderick, arguing that he had the right to feel hurt and betrayed. But no matter which side people were on, one thing was clear. This secret had shattered the perfect image Darlene had built for herself. Eric, on the other hand, seemed lighter. He later told me that he had spent years waiting for this moment, for the truth to finally come out. Keeping the secret had been exhausting, and now that it was all out in the open, he felt free. He had never doubted Roderick's love for him, but the weight of knowing the truth had been heavy on his shoulders for years. Watching Darlene lose control over the narrative felt like justice to him. A few days later, Roderick finally made his first move. He did not return home. He checked into a hotel instead. That's how we knew he was not ready to forgive or move on. Darlene's calls and messages remained unanswered. She was spiraling now, desperate to find a way to fix things. But there was no fixing this. She had spent decades manipulating people, but this was one situation she couldn't twist in her favor. The rest of the family did not know how to act around her. Some people avoided her entirely, unwilling to get caught in the mess. Others stayed close, but it was obvious they were only sticking around out of curiosity, waiting to see what would happen next. Darlene, for her part, tried to act like everything was normal. She continued hosting family gatherings, pretending that Roderick would come back any day now, but everyone knew the truth. She was just trying to save face. After 2 weeks, Roderick finally spoke to Eric. He asked him to meet at a small cafe away from the family. Eric told Eric later told me that their conversation was short but meaningful. Roderick told him that no matter what happened between him and Darlene, Eric would always be his son. Eric already knew this, but hearing Roderick say it out loud was still a relief. Roderick admitted that he did not know what to do yet. He was not sure if he could stay in a marriage that had been built on a lie. But at the same time, walking away from his entire life was difficult. Eric did not pressure him for an answer. He just listened. That's all Roderick needed at that moment. When Roderick finally returned home, it was not to stay. He packed a bag, grabbed some of his things, and told Darlene that he needed more time. He was not coming back any time soon. He did not yell, didn't fight. He was just done. Darlene, of course, tried to keep up appearances. She told people that Roderick was just upset and needed space, that everything would be fine soon. But no one believed her. She was not the respected matriarch anymore. She was a woman who had lied for decades and was now facing the consequences. As for me, I stayed out of it as much as I could. I had done my part in exposing the truth, and I had no regrets. Eric had asked me to do it, and I had stood by his side. We both knew that no matter what happened next, Darlene had only herself to blame. Roderick's future was still uncertain, but one thing was clear. The truth had changed everything, and nothing would ever go back to the way it was before. Update 2. A few weeks had passed since everything blew up. Things had been quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of silence that felt like something big was coming. And then one evening, Roderick called Eric. It was not a long conversation, but his tone was serious. He asked us to meet him at the family's house. That was all he said. No explanations, just a request that felt more like a demand. Eric and I exchanged a look after the call ended. We both knew this was not going to be a simple conversation. Roderick had spent weeks avoiding Darlene, barely speaking to anyone, and now he wanted us all in the same room. That could only mean one thing. He was ready to face the truth head on. The drive to the house felt heavy. Eric was quiet, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. I could tell he was preparing himself for whatever was about to happen. He had waited years for this truth to come out, but now that it had, there were still so many unanswered questions. When we arrived, the house felt different. The warmth that once made it feel like a home was gone. Roderick was already there, standing in the living room, his arms crossed. Darlene was sitting stiffly on the couch, looking pale and exhausted. She glanced at us when we walked in, but there was no anger in her eyes this time, just something that almost looked like fear. Roderick did not waste time with small talk. He looked directly at Darlene and demanded to know everything, every single detail, no more half-truths, no more excuses. He wanted to hear it all from her mouth. Darlene hesitated at first, but when she realized there was no way out of this, she finally started talking, and what she said made everything worse. Eric's biological father was not just some random man from Darlene's past. He was Simon, Roderick's college roommate, a man who had been a part of Roderick's life for decades. Someone Roderick still saw and considered as a friend. That meant Eric had unknowingly spent years around his real father without ever realizing it. The weight of that revelation was crushing. It was one thing to know that Roderick was not Eric's biological father, but to find out that his real father had been right there all along, that was a whole new level of betrayal. Roderick's face did not change as he listened, but his hands clenched at his sides. He asked Darlene one simple question. If Simon had known the truth. She didn't answer right away, and that hesitation told us everything before she even spoke. Yes, Simon knew. He had known all along. That was the first terrible truth of the night. But the second was even worse. Darlene and Simon had never really ended things. Even after she married Roderick, even after Eric was born, even after everything, they had continued their affair, off and on for decades. Even now, they were still involved. Roderick had spent years loving a woman who had never been faithful to him. He had called Simon a friend, shared meals with him, and trusted him, and all the time, Darlene and Simon had been sneaking around behind his back. The room felt suffocating. Eric was frozen in place, his jaw clenched so tightly. I thought he might break his teeth. I could see the storm building in his eyes. He had prepared himself for bad news, but not for this. Roderick stayed quiet for a long time. He didn't yell, he did not lash out, he just stood there, absorbing everything, the betrayal, the lies, the years of deception. Darlene started crying, but no one moved to comfort her. Not this time. She had spent her life controlling everyone around her, and now the truth had left her with nothing. Roderick finally spoke, but his voice was calm, too calm. He said he had everything he needed to know. Then, without another word, he turned and left the house. Eric and I followed soon after, leaving Darlene alone in the ruins of the life she had built on lies. None of us spoke on the way home. There was nothing left to say. But one thing was certain. This was not over yet. Update 3. Roderick did not waste much time after finding out the full truth. A few days later, he filed for divorce. There was no dramatic fight, no second thoughts, just a straightforward decision. It was like he had already made up his mind before he even walked out of the house that night. He was done. It was the only logical step, but for some reason, Darlene seemed completely shocked. She acted as if she hadn't seen this coming, like Roderick would somehow just accept everything and move on, as if nothing had happened. Maybe she truly believed she still had some control left, that she could manipulate the situation like she had done so many times before. But that was not going to happen this time. She kept insisting that they could work things out, that their marriage did not have to end over this. She did not seem to understand that it was not just about the affair. It was about decades of lies. It was about the fact that she had let Roderick live his entire life believing a lie while keeping him in the dark about everything. Her excuses were getting worse too, and the worst one, she actually tried to justify staying involved with Simon by saying she had needs. As if that made any of this okay, as if betraying her husband for years and disrespecting her own family could just be brushed aside because she felt like she deserved something more. Roderick, though, he did not react. He did not yell, he didn't argue, he did not even acknowledge her words. He was completely done with her. After filing for divorce, he went back to the hotel where he had been staying. But Eric and I both felt bad about it. He had just lost everything he thought was real. He spent his whole life believing he had a family, only to find out it was all built on lies. The least we could do was offer him a place to stay, so we did. When we told him he could move in with us, he did not argue. He just packed up his things and showed up at our door the next day. He was not the same man we had always known. There was a quiet sadness about him, like he was processing something too big to put into words. Having him here has been different. He's not an emotional person, but you can tell he's carrying a lot inside. Most of the time, he's quiet. He sits in the living room staring at nothing, lost in thought. He goes for long walks, but he never says where he's going. At night, I hear him moving around the house, unable to sleep. We don't push him to talk, and he does not force himself to pretend he's okay. He just exists in this weird in-between state, trying to figure out what comes next. Eric has been handling it well, but I know it's not easy for him either. He loves Roderick. Regardless of biology, Roderick is his father, and that will never change. Seeing him like this, hurt, betrayed, and lost, has been hard for Eric, but he's doing his best to be there for him. Meanwhile, Darlene has been doing everything in her power to gain sympathy. And by everything, I mean everything. She's been reaching out to family members, trying to spin the story in a way that makes her look like the victim. She's been calling friends, acting like Roderick is being unreasonable and cruel. She's even been going to neighbors, probably hoping someone will take pity on her and offer her a shoulder to cry on. But here's the thing. No one is paying attention to her. People see her now. They see her for who she really is. A liar, a manipulator, a woman who threw away a good man and a good life because she had needs. And no one feels sorry for her. She spent her whole life making herself out to be this strong, respectable woman. She was the matriarch of the family, the one who always had the final say. She wanted control, she wanted power, but the moment everything fell apart, she lost all of it. Now people look at her differently. They whisper about her when they think she's not listening. They do not invite her to things. They do not check in on her. She thought she could twist the story in her favor, but people aren't buying it. Truth is out, and no amount of manipulation can change that. Roderick hasn't acknowledged a single one of her attempts to reach him. He does not answer her calls. He does not reply to her messages. He does not react when someone mentions her name. She no longer exists to him, and I think that's what hurts her the most. She expected him to be angry, to yell, to fight for their marriage in some way. She expected him to sit down and have long discussions with her, maybe even give her a chance to explain herself, but he did not. He just walked away, and now she's left grasping at straws, desperately trying to hold on to a life that no longer belongs to her. The divorce is moving forward, and from what I can tell, Roderick is handling it in the simplest way possible. He's not fighting for anything, not making demands. He just wants out. He wants to move on, and honestly, I do not blame him. But Darlene, she's still fighting. She's tried everything, begging, guilt-tripping, playing the victim. She's even tried to turn Eric against Roderick, telling him that his father is being unfair, that this isn't how a family should act. But Eric isn't falling for it. He sees her for what she is, and every time she tries to reach out, he shuts her down. I do not know what's going to happen next. I don't know how long it will take for the divorce to be finalized. But one thing is certain, Darlene has lost control, and I do not think she knows how to live without it. Update 4. It has been 6 months since my last update, and a lot has changed. The divorce is officially finalized. Roderick's no longer tied to Darlene, and she no longer has any control over his life. It was a long process, and at times it was messy. But in the end, everything played out as expected. At first, Darlene demanded an outrageous amount of alimony, something that was simply impossible to pay. She acted like she was entitled to everything, as if Roderick somehow owed her for all the years they had spent together. She tried to make it seem like she was the victim, as if Roderick was cruel for leaving her. It was honestly pathetic to watch. But reality hit her soon enough. She had no real case. The judge was not going to grant her a ridiculous sum just because she wanted it. She tried every trick in the book, playing the helpless wife, guilt-tripping, even acting like she had suddenly fallen into financial hardship overnight. But none of it worked. Eventually, she backed down. She got the family house and a few other things in the settlement, which, to be honest, was more than she deserved. But if that was the price of Roderick's freedom, then so be it. At least now he can finally start over without having to deal with her manipulations anymore. Roderick seems to be doing better now, on the surface at least. He's eating, sleeping, and going about his daily life as if he's okay. But I know that's not the full story. You do not spend over 3 decades married to someone only to walk away completely unaffected. There are moments when I catch him staring off into the distance, lost in thought. I know he's processing everything in his own way. He does not talk about it much, and I don't push him, but I know this entire situation has left him with deep scars. Before the divorce was finalized, Simon, yes, that's Simon, actually reached out to Roderick, and what he said was absolutely insane. He tried to convince Roderick to stay with Darlene. Can you believe that? Simon had the nerve to sit down with Roderick and tell him that what happened was not that big of a deal, that he was just helping her out, that Darlene did not deserve to have her life ruined over such a small thing. As if lying to her husband for 30 years was not a big deal, as if betraying him in the worst possible way was just something he should forgive and forget. Roderick is one of the calmest people I know. He does not raise his voice, does not lose his temper easily. But in that moment, he did not say a word. He just punched Simon and walked away. I wish I had been there to see it. After that, Simon stopped trying to defend Darlene. He stayed out of it, probably realizing that there was no justifying what they had done. Now that everything is over, Roderick is still staying with us. We told him he could stay as long as he wanted, and honestly, it's been great having him around. I never had a father growing up. My childhood was filled with absence, and I never really understood what it was like to have a father figure. But since I started dating Eric, Roderick has always been like a father to me. He's kind, supportive, and one of the most genuinely good people I've ever met. It's nice to have him in our home. And I like knowing that he has a safe place to heal from everything he's been through. Roderick being here has also brought us closer together. Eric and I have had so many deep conversations with him, learning about his life before all of this. It's strange to think that just a year ago everything seemed so normal. Darlene played the part of the devoted wife. The family gatherings were routine, and no one had any idea what was hiding beneath the surface. And now, everything is different. As for Darlene, she's gone completely silent. No more phone calls, no more attempts to get sympathy. It's like she just disappeared after the divorce was finalized. Maybe she finally realized that no one was on her side. Or maybe she's just too ashamed to show her face. Either way, none of us are complaining. She did try to reach out once, sending Eric a long emotional message about how she regrets how things turned out, and that she never meant to hurt anyone. He did not reply. He didn't even hesitate before blocking her. He told me that for the first time in his life he finally feels free. Darlene was always controlling, always tried to manipulate him, and now that she's out of the picture, he does not have to deal with that weight anymore. So that's where things stand now. The dust has settled, and we're all just moving forward. Roderick still has a long road ahead of him, but he's not alone. He has us, and we'll always be here for him. And as for Darlene, well, she made her bed. Now she has to lie in it. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.